It's time to go into business for yourself. Get ready for another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. Education, insight, and inspiration. Here's your host, small business and franchise expert, Tom Scarda.
Hello, this is Tom Scarda from the Franchise Academy. And I'm doing a quick little webinar today about franchising 101. And hello, it's sort of about Tom Scarda, everything about you wanted to know in regard to franchising. I want to talk to you about how much money you need to actually invest in a franchise, give you some parameters, and also some parameters around the 4,000 franchises that are available in America. I want to break it all down to make it really easy to understand. So, as you may know, I am a franchise consultant. I work with people around the country to help them find the right franchise for them. So I have been in franchising for almost 20 years. I've owned and operated my own businesses. I've been consulting for 14 years. So it's interesting. The first franchise I owned was a smoothie franchise, which I built into 3 units, sold it, made a lot of money on the exit. The second one we purchased was a meal assembly franchise where you make meals and take them home. And it looked like it was going to be great. And we ended up failing and lost a lot of money on that particular franchise. That's what made me a franchise expert. So I want to share the mistakes that I made so you don't have to make them yourself. So I wanted to share, first of all, the number one reason for failure in business is not having enough money. So I want to share my screen with you and talk about everything that you need to know in regard to investing in a business for the money. So I'm going to talk about the money needed to invest and also 4 quadrants of franchises. So every franchise in America will fall into one of these 4 quadrants I'm going to share with you here in a minute. Also, if you're interested, I will give you a free copy of my book if you email me at tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. So I have several books that are out there, but my number one bestseller right now on Amazon is Franchise Savvy and the 6 strategies pros use to pick a top performing franchise. I'll give it to you free. You just have to email me and I'll get you all that information in a minute. I'll show it on the screen. But to invest in a franchise, you need more than just the money to start. So I wanted to share with you kind of what that looks like. In my opinion, you really need 3 buckets of money to invest in a business opportunity. So the first bucket is your initial capital. So that's the amount of money you need to get your doors open, be ready for customers on day one. Everything soup to nuts, down to, the cleaning supplies in the janitor's bathroom. I mean, everything that you need to get that business open and be ready for customers. That's just the initial capital. The working capital, though, is a second bucket of money that you need in order to keep your doors open, pay your staff, pay your rent if you're in a brick and mortar type business. So it's everything that you need on the side to make sure that you can keep afloat as you work towards a profit. Depending on the type of business, and we'll talk about this in a minute, it could take anywhere from, a few months to become profitable, or it could take a year or more, all depending on the kind of opportunity you get involved with. The third bucket of money, most people don't even think about, but I don't let my clients forget about it. It's what I call home capital. So your home capital is the amount of money you need to pay your bills at home as you're working towards making a profit in your business. So most people don't think about that. But if you have no income coming in at all, the rule of thumb for me is you should have at least 6 months of whatever your monthly bills are at home above and beyond what it costs to open and operate the franchise. That will keep you from going insane and being nervous and really having a lot of anxiety and stress. So you want to be prepared. Another rule of thumb I'll share with you real quickly is, in my opinion, you should not invest more than half of your net worth. So if you could figure out your net worth, or I can help you do that if you want to contact me, it's really, really easy. It's your assets minus anything that is a liability. And whatever you're left with, that's your net worth. So you should not invest more than half of that. You got to give yourself safety just in case things don't go the way you want them to. If you have a few slow months, you want to make sure you have enough in the background, maybe to take an extra loan or whatever it might be. Hopefully that won't happen if you do pick the right franchise. So I want to talk about something that I call the 4 quadrants of franchise businesses. So every franchise out there will fall into one of 4 quadrants or categories. So you have simple retail, complex retail, and then service to consumer and service to business. And each one of these come with a different set of characteristics. So I wanted to share those characteristics by quadrant right now. So if you're in a simple retail, that's typically in a strip mall or in a regional mall or right on Main Street, anywhere you can lease commercial property, your investment will start at $150,000 for the first 2 buckets of money, not the third bucket. So that third bucket, the home capital, is the money that you need that's going to be specific to you depending on what your bills are every month. So on average, for the first 2 buckets of money, it'll start at about $150,000 on the low side. It goes up to about $100,000 or $500,000. Food franchises are typically on the more expensive side, with all the equipment that you need and the health department requirements and Americans with Disability Act requirements. It usually takes a lot to get a food type of business open, but it's not a tough thing to do. You just need to be prepared for it. Hours are really something to think about. So if you're trying to build a business and have more time with your family, you want to be home on nights and weekends. If you are in a simple retail business, you may not be there all the time, but someone will be there, and your hours could be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Staffing, you could have 3 to 10 people working for you. That's kind of the low side in regard to business. So it's a minimum amount of staff because it is kind of a simple operation. That's why I call it simple, a simple retail. And it'll take about 6 months to get your doors open. So what I mean by that is in a franchise, it's all in retail. It's all about location, location, location. So a great franchise company will make sure that you're in a really good spot. So they're going to do all sorts of studies and make sure that it is a really viable and the best possible situation you could be in regard to the real estate. So once you do, you'll identify locations and you have to do permitting, then interior construction. By the time you get everything said and done, it could be 6 months from the time you sign your franchise agreement to the time you see your first customer come in the door. The next opportunity that you could look at is something I call complex retail. So complex retail, the investment will start at $500,000 and go up to about $2 million. So this is usually large footprint type businesses, the big kind of food names that McDonald's and Taco Bell, KFC, things like that. They will start, like a $500,000 investment. If you're building from the ground up, a lot of times you'll literally pour the foundation and build the building from scratch, own the land. Now you're looking more like a 1.5 million to get that going for obvious reasons. So your location is a standalone location for the most part. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in food. It's anything that's a large footprint. It could be like an Aaron's Rental Center or Ace Hardware, something like that. Your hours could be 10 a.m. to midnight. Again, it depends on the franchise, but the operation is a long operation, usually 7 days a week. Even when you're not open, there might be people in the building cleaning or prepping or whatever needs to be done. Staffing, you'd have 30 to 60 people working for you in a large operation like that. And your ramp up could take 6 to 12 months, sometimes even longer. Again, if you're literally building, digging up the ground and pouring concrete for a foundation, it could take quite a while. And, it's kind of the larger business conglomerates that will buy these kind of outfits. it's usually not just a single family guy like me that would come and open up, a huge, $1.5 million business. And it's not because, you can't or I can't, but they're really looking for people that have multiple unit ownership experience. So even if you have worked in, KFC as a kid, going to school doesn't mean that you have the ability to own one and manage a kind of business like that. So they're very careful about who they'll award a franchise to. But that's some of the big names out there in franchising, those big, what I call complex retail businesses. Your service to consumer businesses are interesting. So these businesses, as an investment for the first 2 buckets of money, will start at about $60,000 and go as high as about $150,000. Now, these things are not kind of, in your face all the time. These are businesses that could be operated out of a home office or an executive office. It might even be like a warehouse with an office, and the type of service will dictate the kind of location that you'll have. But it's an inexpensive type of investment compared to business, overall. Your hours are, more like an 8 to 6 Monday through Friday. There could be some Saturday hours. Again, it's a simple operation for the most part. And you could have 0 to 10 people working for you in one of these type of service to consumer businesses. You could, there's a caveat, there could be as many as 30 or 40 people working for you over time if it's the kind of business where you're dispatching folks out to perform a service at someone's home or office. And you could be in a business like this really quickly because there is no real estate acquisition. So once you figure out what franchise is the one you want in this service arena, you sign your franchise agreement, you go to training. Training is usually about a week, and you come back from training and you're in business. You don't have to worry about renting out stores and leases and all of that kind of stuff. You hit the ground running. So these kind of businesses will ramp up quickly, and they'll get to a profit usually quicker than a larger investment business for obvious reasons. Less overhead means possibly quicker profit, but you have to really investigate each of the franchises individually that you're looking at. And my advice, having done this myself several times and coaching, over 1,500 people over the past, 14 years doing this, never take what anyone says about the franchise for gospel. No matter what I would say to someone about a franchise or what the franchise company says about themselves, take that with a grain of salt, and then you're going to validate it with the franchise owners in the field. They will give you the good, bad, and ugly of what's happening with that franchise. That's where you're going to get your best information. It's the most important thing you could do. Matter of fact, if you are investigating a franchise, you should contact me because I have a little sheet of 39 questions you should ask franchise owners when you do these validation phone calls. So keep that in mind and reach out. No problem. I'd be happy to hear from you. The last quadrant is service to business. So this is kind of a B2B thing where you're servicing other businesses, and the investment is rather low also. Again, $60,000 to $150,000 to get in the business for the most part. Your location could be a home office. It could be an executive office. Again, warehouse with an office. Your hours are, really what I call family-friendly hours. Usually it's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. No nights, no weekends, no holidays, because essentially you're dealing with other business owners during the day. So it kind of makes sense if you're really trying to get more time in your life. Staffing is limited, usually, 0 to 10 people. Again, the service will dictate it. The nice thing about the service businesses in general is that there's no ceiling to how big you could grow the business. Like if you think about something where you're selling a product out of a store, whether it's a sandwich or anything else, if you have a line, out the door and down the block and around the corner, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can only sell so much product. But in a service business, there's really no ceiling. Is if you could get that market penetration, you just add more staff, you get more trucks or, more equipment, whatever you need to service your customers. But really not more than that is needed. So that's interesting when you think about that. Just a little bit of an insight that I have gleaned over the years of looking at franchises. So again, in a service business, ramp up is quick. You could be in a business in 45 days, from the time you engage the franchise company. So interesting. So again, the 4 quadrants are pretty clear in my mind. Every franchise will fall into one of these 4 quadrants. The thing to think about is in the top 2 quadrants, when you have retail, you have a store, and people come to you. But in the bottom 2, in the service businesses, the staff or you actually go out to the customer. And what that means, what you need to think through in that scenario is that you have to do more marketing because there's no store for someone to just happen upon and walk in and buy something from you. So you have to be out there doing guerrilla marketing. You have to be, heavy on the internet these days. And the franchise companies help with search engine optimization. And one of the advantages to having a franchise is that you have all of that, what I call digital stamina behind you. So you have a large footprint really across the country. So your search engine optimization, or where you place in Google or Bing or Yahoo search, will be a much higher placement because you have all this behind you. And you have to also think about customer acquisition. And this is a personal thing for me. You could look at a business and it could look like the best thing since sliced bread. But are you going to really enjoy the day-to-day operation? And a lot of that has to do with the way you're going to get customers, because there's all different ways you could get a customer. There's cold calling, there's warm calling, strategic alliance building. But if you're more of a wallflower or an introvert, like me, believe it or not, you would want to more likely be in a retail business where customers are coming to you because they know what you have already, as opposed to you trying to go out and solicit customers. So it's just something to think about in regard to your skill set, but also, what you want to be doing with your days. You have the choice. When you're buying a franchise, it's all a choice. So just to kind of bring this all together, I have several books out there available on Amazon. Like I said, my Franchise Savvy book is a #1 bestseller. I have a podcast, the Franchise Academy. Just go to thefranchiseacademy.com. There's probably about 60 shows we have out there. You can listen to franchisors, franchisees, franchise lawyers. We try to bring everybody in to give you a really good picture of what's going on in the franchise world. But if you want a free copy of Franchise Savvy, or for that matter, The Magic of Choosing Uncertainty, which is all about making life choices, I'll give you a copy for free. All you have to do is email me. And so my email is tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. And I offer also a free 15-minute phone call so I could advise you and help you figure out if franchising is even right for you. Franchising is not for everyone. So you really have to understand what it takes, not only financially, but mentally, to make something successful. So I highly encourage you to go to getwithtom.com and you can book a time with me, 15 minutes, no obligation, pick my brain. I've been in this business for 20 years, and franchising has saved my life, and it has helped my life and my family. Prior to being in franchising, I used to be a subway conductor. And so in New York City subway, I went from a subway conductor into franchising. So if I can do it with, limited funds and limited education, if I can do it, you could do it too. So reach out, have a phone call with me, check out the websites that I have listed here. Thefranchiseacademy.com is where you can see everything that I'm doing, including the podcast. Feel free to, again, email me for a book. Put in the subject line, free book, and email me at tom@thefranchiseacademy.com. And don't forget to give me your street address, because I'm sending you a real book. I'm not sending you a download. This is a real book I'm going to send you. Something you could hold in your hands and then share with your friends as well. So, again, my name is Tom Scarda. Feel free to reach out, and I hope that this little webinar helped you out a little bit. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks.
This has been another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. For more info, go to our website, thefranchiseacademypodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Tom Scarda's YouTube channel for educational videos on franchising, education, insight, and inspiration.